So, students, once again, you are welcomed in this online teaching program. And we were discussing Oliver Goldsmith's essay, Beau Tibbs. In my first in my first lecture, we have a introduction of Goldsmith as a writer, his life, his characteristics, and we have also some introduction about the essay Beau Tibbs. Now, in this essay, we would discuss in detail the essay Beau Tibbs. The essay begins with this remark that the writer says that though I am a very pensive, very thoughtful person, but I like the company of gay people. And he says that whenever I found a crowd and whenever I see that people are gathered, I went there just to see that what they are doing. I am just the purchaser of the entertainment of the joy which I can get there. So the writer, after giving this background, he gives a very important thing, a very important message. He says that a mind thus sunk for a while, below its natural standard, is qualified for stronger flights. Now, this line is very often asked for the explanation. What the writer want to say in these lines, in this sentence, a mind thus sunk for a while. That it is not a human tendency that for 24 hours we continue to work in a serious mood or in a serious nature. So that we need some kind of interval gap in which we can have some lighter things, we could have some fun, so that it reduces your tension, and the writer says that when you are relieved from this kind of seriousness for a short while, your mind is capable of taking a longer flights. In other words, that the gap is necessary in order to move forward, in order to think big and think about serious nature. A mind thus sunk for a while below its natural standard is qualified for stronger flights. It makes the mind capable to take high ideas, high thoughts, as those retire who would spring forward with great vigor. That's why that when we sleep, when we have a very sound sleep, so we are able to work very hard. Because we feel relaxed after a good sleep. So similarly, the gap, the interval, and the period of laughter and humor are essential for the you can say that for the health of the mind, because the mind could generate serious ideas when it works properly. Now, the writer says that the writer and his friend were wandering around the city. They were just roaming here and there in the market. They went out just to notice the behavior and dresses of the people. During his talk, his friend started behaving in an unusual way. As they were wandering in the city and they were just looking, they have no serious purpose of buying anything, but they were just roaming around the city. So what he found, the writer found that his friend is behaving quite unnaturally, and it seemed that he is trying to avoid someone, that he has seen someone in the crowd, and he is trying to avoid that person so that they cannot have a face-to-face meeting. But at last the person came in front of them. He addressed his friend in a very familiar tone. What he says that, oh my dear Charles, my dear Charles, cries he, shaking my friend's hand, and very emphatically, very warmly he shakes hands with my friend, and asks a very humorous question, where have you been hiding this half a century? Like that, I have seen you after a gap of half a century. It means 50 years. That how exaggerated. Look at the language of the person. And possibly I had fancied you were gone down to cultivate matrimony. And he says, he amusingly says that I was thinking that you have been married and now you are living in your estate in the country, and you are trying to cultivate matrimony, means you want to increase your family. So look at the way, the behavior of that person, and that is Beau Tibbs. During the reply, I had an opportunity of surveying the appearance of our new companion. When the writer's friend and that strange person, whose name is later we came to know as Beau Tibbs, the writer got the time, the opportunity to observe his behavior and his dress. His looks were his looks were pale and sharp, and round his neck he wore a broad black ribbon, and his bosom a buckle studded with glass. His coat was trimmed and tarnished. He wore by his side a sword with a black hilt, and his stockings of silk, though newly washed, were grown yellow by long service. So look at that dress, the dressing behavior of that person. He was thin and looked pale, but he wore a black ribbon around his neck. His coat was twisted, and he carried a sword from his friend. The writer was greatly amused by his peculiar code of the dress. So, so the dressing sense was very peculiar, was very strange. The writer was very much impressed by his dressing habits. Now, when they started talking, he says that he had dinner with Lord Muddler, that is, and the Duchess of Piccadilly, and my lord was also there. You were watching last night, and there the person asked him that where you have been hiding during this time. And he says that that's why I take that why should I poach, and why should I hide? Poach means why should I hide? That's why I take a fine woman as some animals do their prey. That he says that I have no need to hide myself because I am so you can say that so beautiful, so handsome, that there is no need for me to hide. And he says that I don't give more weightage to woman. For the woman is for me just like as animals do their prey. For example, when you are hunting, you can say that here, what happens that when you throw light into the eyes of the animals is stunted. It stops where it is, and the hunter shoots him down. So that's the way that I am. He says that I am so beautiful, so handsome, that whenever I go, the women surround him and they swoop around him. They stand still and swoop, and they fall into my mouth. So this kind of exaggeration he has about his personality. Uh, Although we have very satirically, the writer has described his dressing sense, and although he was trying to look very energetic, but the writer says that his looks look pale. So the pale is not the sign, is the color of good health. So that's why that he says that, and he cried, "Ah, Tibbs, thou art happy fellow." The writer also comments him that, I hope that you have improved a lot, you have good connections, and I'm very happy that you are living a good life. You know that, and he says that, but he doesn't stop here. He says that he has many more relationships with aristocratic families, and that's why I don't want to discuss you, because it is a secret. Uh, and and he says he also takes an assurance from the writer that because you should not discuss the things which we have talked to you in public, because these things are related with very high class people. Uh, I hope that we have got some ideas about the essay, and in my third lecture, I would try to we would continue to discuss the essay, and uh, and try to conclude the essay. Thank you.